Okay, we're rolling.
All right, this is an interview at Fort Hamilton Senior Center, Brooklyn, New York, the 12th of January 2005, 1:15 p.m. Interviewers are Wayne Clark and Mike Russert. Could you give me your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
Full name is James Richard Lannigan. That's Lannigan. I was born 10/31/1924
Okay.
in Brooklyn,
All right.
and as I still reside in the house I was born in 80
Really?
years later.
What was your educational background prior to entering service?
Prior to going into the service, I had a grammar school education, first grade to 8th grade, and a high school 4 years, and 2 months after I graduated from high school, I was drafted into the service.
Okay. Do you remember where you were and how you heard about Pearl Harbor?
I remember it very, very distinctly. There was a movie theater 4 blocks from my home, and we had gone to the movie, myself and my buddies, and it was the early evening, and the manager came out and the lights went on in the theater, and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to announce that the Japanese have bombed Pearl Harbor." We all looked at each other and said, "What's Pearl Harbor?" Which we were soon to find out.
Okay. Do you remember, did you have any other reactions to that at all? Or?
Well, we were like 16 years of age then, and those days we weren't as sophisticated as these kids are today. So that at that time we didn't realize it.
Right.
It wasn't until later on till they started the draft, and I have an older brother who was 8 years older, and he was called in, and it saw all your neighbors' sons and your friends going in. And most of my buddies all volunteered and went into the Navy at 17 years of age. God bless my Irish mother. She said, "Jimmy, finish school. You'll always have an education." And so as soon as I finished high school, within 2 months I was drafted into the service.
Okay. And you were drafted into the Army Air Corps? Or?
Into the Army Air Corps. And that was just chance. When you went over to the induction board, like one day maybe they need Navy, they took Navy. The next day it might be Air Corps. It was just when I went over, Air Corps.
Okay. Where did you go for your basic training?
I went down to Miami Beach. The Army had taken over Miami Beach. Yeah, there were 100,000 soldiers down on Miami Beach, and we lived in all the hotels down there. So that's where I spent my basic training.
You went in what year and month? I forgot to ask.
I went in let's see, it was January, February, March, April of 1943.
Okay. How long were you in Miami Beach, and what kind of training did you receive there?
Well, it was ironic. What happened down there was usually like for 18 days of basic training. But what happened in about the 15th day, a few of us were called in based on what we had done on our IQ test, and they wanted to send us to officers training school in Nebraska. So my buddy, he said, "Let's go," and I didn't want to go, but he said, "Let's go, we can become officers." So they took us off all the shipments, and they kept me in Miami Beach until November, when I was shipped down to the University of Nebraska for testing. They found what my educational background, a 4-year college program, in 1 year it had to be done. They told me, they said, you know, you passed it, but it's going to be very, very difficult for you. So I hadn't wanted it too much in the first place, and I was separated from my buddy. So I asked them if I could go to mechanic school, like they would have sent me. So that's what they did. They sent me to training in mechanics, and then sent me to Rapid City, South Dakota, where I trained then. And then I went to a specialist school on B-17 about a year later, for about 6 weeks, to Lockheed Aircraft Factory. And then I came back to South Dakota, and I was there until the war ended in Europe. And then I went to Oregon, and the war ended shortly after they dropped the bomb. And then I came home from Oregon.
Okay, now you were trained to work as a mechanic on B-17s. Could you talk about some of the
What we did, it
training?
was a training base, and they would come, there were 10-man crews on the B-17. Pilot, co-pilot, bombardier, navigator with the officers, 6 enlisted men, a radio man, and then the rest were all like gunners. One was a mechanic, and one was a radio man. The other 4 were basically, and you know the setup of 17. 10-man crews, so they came from all over the country from the different schools, and they made them up in groups of 10, and they trained at our field and flying missions, I guess for about a month or so, and then they were sent out in another group. We worked around the clock there, 7 days a week. I mean, we didn't get a day off, but they just kept coming in. As soon as they went out, they came in, train, and that's what we did. As you can see the picture there.
Okay, now that's, are you in that photograph?
Yeah, I'm just the head here.
Okay, why don't you hold that toward the camera.
Okay.
Now, could you describe, you told us a little bit before, describe what you have on in that suit. That's in South Dakota during the winter.
Yeah. Well, this is the way we dressed for work.
Which
in
one?
South Dakota.
Which one are you? Can you just point to it?
I'm just the head back in the back. Just see the head there.
Okay.
And what we would do is get up in the morning, put on your shorts and your t-shirt. And after that, you would put on long underwear. And after that, you would put on your fatigue suit, as they call them.
Okay.
And then, of course, you had the heavy boots, full-line boots. And then we put on the full-line uniform. It was a leather jacket, full-line, leather hat, and leather pants. And that's the way we waddled down to the line. So, but what we had to do then when the pilots would come out
You
to
can
take...
put that down now.
Pardon me?
He had the,
Oh.
finished it.
What we would do then, the pilots and the crews would come down, they'd be assigned to, say, each plane had a number, and they'd be assigned to the plane when they come to our plane, and then we would just talk with the captain, you know, who was, or usually the lieutenants then, and go over the plane, everything, and tell them everything, and then when they would finish, it was about 5 hours they were gone when they came back. They go on these simulated bombing missions, drop these 600-pound dummy bombs, and then when they come back, they would write up if there was any problem with the plane or anything specific, and if there was, we would note them. If we on the line could fix them, it was something minor, we would do it. But if it was something a little more involved, it would have to be pulled off the line and go to the hangars that they had there and be worked on by the crews that were just assigned in for that. That was basically what we did.
So you basically did the general maintenance.
General maintenance, exactly, general maintenance.
Were there any major problems that you remember with the B-17s?
The only thing I can
And
say we
maintenance.
were always very tremendously proud of, we didn't lose one plane. I was there 17 months, and every plane that ever went out came back. We did have one plane that came back, couldn't get the I'll never forget that, couldn't get the landing gear down. And we had a master sergeant there, was an old military, he was a military man, he wasn't old, he was probably about 30. And he got them down. He had the pilot go up at the height, I don't recall what it was exactly, and then put the plane into a dive. And as he went down so far, then pulled out and snapped the wheels down. Everybody was cheering. But other than that, never had anything. Once in a while, maybe in a blue moon, maybe once or twice, a tire would blow or something, but nobody ever got hurt. So that was pretty much it.
How often did you, for example, change the tires on a plane?
Well, we didn't do that.
you didn't,
That was,
okay.
if they needed it, it was,
Mhm.
it was a question of need, you know.
Okay.
What they would do, like at every 100 hours, I believe it was 100 hours, they would pull the plane off and take it into the main hangar where they would, you know, do the thorough inspection of everything in the plane. Where ours was just like a, you almost say like a, basically a ground crew, make sure that the plane was fueled up, make sure that nothing leaking, confer with the pilot, and if anything serious, pass it on, so it would go to be pulled off the line and go to the hangar. So,
Now, when you went out to Oregon, did you begin working on B-29s before the end of the war, or?
Well, I tell you, we were assigned to the B-29, and I think I was in the B-29 only about 3 or 4 times, and we were being trained, you know, going overseas, and of course then they dropped the bomb.
Mhm.
So that was the end of it. Everything just stopped, and then we just bided our time till we got discharged. We all had I was just short a few months of 3 years. So then we were discharged. I got discharged in Oregon and came home by train 5 days.
Mhm.
But it was a great experience.
What was the date of your discharge?
Let me see. I got out in, God, what the date? April. I went in April. I got out, I think it was in February. I'm not sure the date.
Mhm.
February, would have been February of 46.
Okay. How did you find out about the dropping the atomic bombs?
Oh, well, specifically, you know, it was all over. We heard about it, that they had dropped the bomb on, you know, that's what we said. What the hell is the atomic? What's the bomb? Nobody knew that it was top secret. Nobody knew anything about that. So all we knew that was that shortly thereafter, it was all over. The Japanese had surrendered, and we were going to be going home. That
What was the reaction when you heard about the atomic bombs, besides not knowing what it was?
Yeah, not knowing, well, you know, we were all, you know, had little, I was among the fortunate ones that never had to go over, but we were going over too. But of course, as a ground crew mechanic, you'd be in the back lines. I mean, you never. So it was a tremendous sense. Like I left home a kid of 18. We were not like the kids today of 18. We were basically innocent guys. Today, there's some more, I'd use a kind word, sophisticated, right? But I knew we were going home, and it was a great, great feeling for me. But it had to mean more like for people like my brother got married while he was in service to a girl back home, and you know, family was being back together again. Because I know, like, I was in a year before I got a furlough, before I even got home, and I think I was only home 3 times in 3 years. Not to say that it was not because I wasn't in combat or anything like that, and but you know, especially. You know how you miss home. Everybody misses home and their families. And
Was this the first time you were away from home when you?
basically, yeah. The first time I was ever away from home.
Now, did you write home quite often?
Almost every day, almost every. And my mother and father were born in Ireland. They were immigrants, and I had my older brother, who was a first lieutenant, and then he was in combat. He was one of those forward observers, you know, for the field artillery that flew over the spots, and they had a very high casualty rate. And then I had 2 older sisters who wrote to me a lot, and then my mother wrote to me, and you know, they came from Ireland when they were just kids, 16, but everybody always looks for those letters from home. Yeah.
Okay. You were in Oregon?
I wasn't
After?
in Oregon long. It was just that they sent me.
Did you go there? You were there for VJ Day?
No, I wasn't in there for VJ Day. Where was I? You know, my memory. Where was it? I'm trying to think now where I was exactly. It was either, it wasn't in Oregon because we were discharged from Oregon, but they sent us there. I think at the time I was in Mountain Home, Idaho. That's where they sent us. I'm not positive, but I think it, because the last time they switched us around about 3 or 4 places.
What was the reaction on your base at that time? when you
Oh,
were there?
everybody was, oh my God, it was just thank God it's over, you know. And, you know, like I say, for us, we were going home, we were happy, but we never really suffered any hardships per se, like the guys. That's why I was saying to you, you know, I'm proud of, you know, that I served my country, but there's so many more that, you know, made so many sacrifices. And see, this is what I even brought in. These are all, my church put this out. These are all the 3,000 guys, 80 of them were killed. And these are all of the fellows who were killed in the service. And they have a little story about their lives and everything. So,
Now, when you were on a ground crew, were all of you, did you keep the same crew the whole time?
the planes, like,
Well, the ground crew, the mechanics, did you all stay together as a crew?
well, what we basically did, like, I would be assigned to a plane, like 649, that B-17 was my plane. Okay, when we would do, when the pilots come down, each one of us had that plane, we'd go over with him what it was. It was just like fueling the plane up, they would come out, we'd supervise the fueling, we'd check the plane out for basic. Then, like every 25 hours, we would do a whole complete inspection. They'd pull the plane off maybe for a day. And then the other 3 guys, you know, once the planes took off, we'd come over, say, to my plane, and then we'd go over with each guy. I would like assign them, you check the radios, you check the tires, and you take this and take that, and then we put in a report. Then when it got to be like the 100-hour inspection, they pulled it off the line, and then they take it inside and go over from tooth to comb. Yeah, it was like you might say in a way, the basic gas station attendant. Check the oil, check the fluids, check everything, discuss anything with the pilots when they come back, you know, so.
Okay, now you had some photographs you wanted to show us.
Well, this is when I first got drafted.
If you hold that, you know, up again.
Okay. When I was a kid of 18, wet behind the ears.
Now, where was that taken? Do you remember?
This was taken in Florida. But that,
Okay. Got it.
okay. Yeah, as a matter of fact, it even has the name.
Okay.
Yeah. This was down in Miami too, up on the roof of where we stayed.
Well, if you,
Yeah.
Okay.
And you saw this one, of
Yes.
course, that was the plane
Yes.
I had. This one I was home on leave with my sister. She became a religious nun and she died a few years ago.
Okay.
and then you had this to show us too.
Yeah, well this is, I entered the police department after I came home. This
If you
is,
hold it up a little bit.
okay, and these are the Good Conduct Medal, the Victory Medal, and the American Theater Medal as they gave them, you know.
Okay, got it.
Okay, yes.
So that's basically my story. The B-29, though, we just started working on that. I didn't do too much on that, but the B-17, that was a fantastic plane. You're familiar?
Yes, did you ever fly on any of the planes, the 17s at all?
They used to test flight them, okay? And we had a chief warrant officer. He was an antique in the Army, smoked a cigar. So, you know, we're 18 and 19. Chief, can we go up with you? Can we go up? Yeah, sure, get a parachute. Getting a parachute was the last time I went up. He took us, you know, up to so many thousand feet and put it into power dive to check it out. And we were holding, oh my God, we were gonna die. He gave us the ride of our life. That was the last time I got in a window. But he was smoking his pipe, his cigar there. But that was some experience. I couldn't believe it. You know, he scared the life out of it, I'll say. But yeah. But like I say, I'm proud of that I served my country. I'm proud and happy of what my brother did, and what my family did, and what my friends did, and with just the fate that I ended up in this position where we were almost like deemed essential for the support the guys who had to do the fighting and dying. So, like I say, I'm proud of what I did, but I felt, you know, there were so many guys that did so much more than I did, but that you felt you wanted to do it.
Yes.
Let them.
Did you use the GI Bill at all?
Yes, I went to college. I went to Fordham University for 2 years, the Fordham Business School. And I worked part-time. I went days. This is, I don't know if you know, it was downtown Manhattan, not the
Yes.
one up. And I went for 2 years, but now I've been home a while. I was dating my wife, and I worked part-time, and it just wasn't for me. And my mother, God bless her, the old Irish, my father worked for the city. Jimmy, take the city test. You'll always have a job if you work. Mama, leave me alone. I just get upset. She drove me out of the house on a Saturday. I took the police test, and I passed it. And when they called me, it was about a year and a half, 2 years later, my wife and I wanted to get married, and you know, college wasn't for me. So it was the greatest thing I ever did. I went to the police department. I became a lieutenant in the police department. I don't know, the way they work it, it was all the tests, patrolman, sergeant,
Yes.
lieutenant, it were all. So I had made lieutenant, and I had a heart attack while I was working. So I was in the hospital, Beekman downtown for a while. So when I come out, they passed what they call the heart bill. And they said if you had a heart attack while you were working, it was deemed minor duty, and you could retire at 3/4 pay, tax-free for the rest of your life. I said to my wife, you know, honey, I did very well on the lieutenant's test. I only say this to put it in perspective. There were 1,600 sergeants, 400 passed the lieutenant's test, and I was number 12 on the list. So I said, there's a good chance that if I, you know, would take the captain's test, I'll pass the test and I'll make captain, and I was in headquarters at the time. I'll be in charge of a precinct, and I said I'll be dead in about 6 months. So I said I'm going to retire. My wife was a fantastic person. I retired, and I was out 2 months, and you talk about a total change. I went to work for a school photography company that took the pictures of the little kids in school, and I was the salesman. It was a wonderful job. Off when the schools were off. My wife and I had a lot of time together, and unfortunately she passed away 4 years ago. But I look back, I had a wonderful life, had a wonderful family, wonderful wife, wonderful friends, so I got no complaints.
Did you ever join veterans organizations?
Yeah, I belong to the Catholic War Veterans. We have a group up in my church up there, OPH. We meet once a month, and matter of fact, I'm hoping and praying and planning to make a trip down to the Washington Memorial.
Okay.
I didn't want to go to the first one because I figured it'd be so crowded. They told me it's about a 4 or 5 hour ride down there.
Yeah, I think.
So I'm hoping that I'm well enough, because get a bus and take a group down there.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for your interview.
Oh, I hope I didn't bore you.
No.